Hi, welcome back to ODE YouTube channel. A couple of days ago I showed you all these inks that I received from Appelboom for review. So I guess the first step for doing a review is to make the swatch. At least that's the way I do it. So I decided to do it on camera. I never did it, and I think it may be interesting for some of you to see how I usually do it. So I will change the camera placement and I'll be right back. And I'm back today over my usual burlap background. I put this cutting mat to give it more stability. I use this, and also because it is easier to tape all the little papers where I do the ink samples or the ink swatches. The paper that I use is the Rohrer paper. This is the little small notebooks from Rohrer, which are very nice to do this kind of work. At least I like to make my swatches in this kind of paper because this will be the kind of paper where I will write. So what I did, I previously prepared it. These are 10 inks. I have 10 pieces of paper already labeled and taped to the background. It will be easier to make these on camera. And let's start. What do I need for these? I will need simple tools, which are the bottles of ink, this pipette to take a drop of ink to put on paper, and then this knife to spread it. You don't need to have such a big or heavy knife, but I like this Victorinox Hunter Pro in the Alox finish. I find it beautiful. I know this channel is not about knives, but I love Victorinox and I find this just beautiful. So if I like beautiful things as pens and inks, why can't I like other beautiful things? Okay, let's go. Let's start with this one on top. So the first one is this Jacques Herbin Orange Soleil from the collection Les Encres Essentielles. The French viewers, I think, will not be happy with me because of my bad French accent, but it's the best I can do. So I take a little bit of ink with the pipette. I put 1, 2, 3 drops. Put the pipette aside to clean it. I will clean it between every swatch, and then I'll edit those parts out. And what I do is to have the droplet there, and I do it like this. I spread the ink with the knife, and doing this way, I tried it already with other. Doing it with Q-tips, but what I found is that the ink stays on paper in a very artificial way, very coherent, very flat way. That's not how the ink will stay on paper when you write with it. So this is how I prefer to do it, because there are places where the ink will pull a lot more and other places where it will be more spread, and this will give us the correct idea of the shading you may have with the right nib. So now we go to Robert Oster, and the ink is Deep Sea. I will show this on camera, not to be all invisible. I pick up the pipette, I take just a little bit of ink, and I try to put 3 drops on paper, and this splashed a little bit. Okay, The amount of ink that I put in every swatch is not always the same, but I don't find it to be a problem. Put the ink aside, and now let's do the spread. It's like if you were spreading butter on a toast. So you put a little bit of butter and then you spread it with your knife. And this ink looks nice. Now, next ink will be this Herbin Vert Pré from Herbin. Let's uncap it. It looks like the kind of green that I enjoy. Maybe not too saturated. Okay. I have to do this carefully because on camera I can tip the bottles of ink and I don't want to do that. And try to do this like an irregular pattern, and this is it. A very nice bright green, almost like a highlighter green. Next ink, this one, Lierre Sauvage. I'm not sure, but it's clearly by the bottle. It looks quite a different color. I don't know much about these inks, I didn't search for them. So this is really a surprise for me because I don't know how the inks should appear on paper or should look like on paper. So 1, 2, spread. Okay, that looks like a really interesting green, but with some aspects. Maybe it has some shading, I'm not sure. It has some much darker places here. So let's see how it dries. Next, we'll go to the Graf von Faber-Castell Violet Blue. We put it on paper. We close the bottle. Oops. These bottles are really beautiful. This one I already have an idea of which color it is because it spilled in its way to me. And let's take a look. It's a nice, I would say quite unsaturated purple. The next ink is a green again, and this is this Pelikan Edelstein Aventurine, and let's see if this color is how it compares with the other green colors that I have there. So to have some color repetition may be an interesting thing, because you can then make some comparisons and know more about inks than if you got all the inks of the same color. So taking this off the way, and now let's spread it. This green, I would say, is more blue than the previous two greens, I would say. Now let's go for the next. And next ink is different shade. It is the Sepia from Rohrer and Klingner. First time having one ink of this brand, and so the procedure is the same. Some drops of ink on paper, the pipette aside, bottle of ink kept and aside, the knife. This is a really strange behaving ink that has some irregular shading. It may look nice on very wet pens, but I'm afraid it may be a little bit like that Montblanc Swan Illusion Plume that I didn't like that much. Now let's go for the Lamy Bronze. And another orange. And I see I have a little bit of sepia ink here on the contaminating my swatch of the Lamy Bronze. Don't think there will be that big problem. Close the bottle, put it aside next to the others, and let's go. Maybe I didn't put enough ink. This one is, or the paper is not as flat. It's being a little bit harder to move it around the paper. So it is, I would say, a not very saturated shade of orange. And now, final two inks. It is this one, the Diamine Monboddos Hat. And let's take, okay, this one is more empty. I have to go a little bit deeper. And I guess this is another purple ink. Let's cap it, take it out of the way, and okay. Nice dark saturated ink. Now we are starting to see the others to dry up a little, and we can see some interesting shading, and I'm seeing some interesting shading also in this ink. Let's see how it behaves in a pen, and I'm curious and at the same time I'm a little bit afraid, because I don't like inks that shade too much. I know that I'm not the most interesting ink guy, because people usually like inks with lots of strange properties. I like quite simple inks, nice colors, but I don't need all the shimmer and shading and sheen. And now the final one is the Pilot Iroshizulu Yama-guri, which may be a little bit like the Rohrer and Klingner, or maybe grayish ink, I'm not sure. So I'll put this, it will be off camera, sorry, but it is easier for me to avoid accidents now. Now that I'm ending this, I don't want to mess everything up. 1, 2, 3 drops of ink. When they splash like that, it's nice to see, but when you do many ink swatches at the same time, sometimes this happens. A little bit of one ink spills into the swatch of the other ink. So, or I learn to live like this, or I'll need to change this way of doing, but I think it would be the most interesting way of doing that, and for you to be able to check how I usually do it. So, now we are done. This is an interesting color, much darker than that one, the Rohrer and Klingner, but now it's not that fair to make this comparison because the inks are not dry yet. So I will stop for a little bit, I will allow the inks to dry, and I will be right back. And I'm back. The swatches are not 100% dry. There are some little pools of ink in some of them, but I don't think I can wait much more. For me, it's hard to make the videos in several parts, separated by days to have things settled. I like to do it all at once. I know sometimes we can't, but I just can't wait. And because I will review all of them, I can already show now, and then I will show in separate reviews. So this is already almost dry. In the end, there are, I think, 3 inks that surprised me a little bit. One was the Pelikan Edelstein Aventurine, because when I spread it on the paper, it looked much more bluer than the Lierre Sauvage, but it is bluer, but it's not that much. It's not that big of a difference. Another thing, I thought that this Lamy Bronze was very unsaturated, but now I can see it is saturated, more in a, going towards a brown, but this one, for example, is really a bright orange. Then another ink that surprised me on these was this Rohrer and Klingner Sepia. It's still wet in some places, but it shows up to be much more saturated also than it looked. It looked a little bit watery, and I was thinking what's going to get out of this. There are places where it is more, you can see there is not so much color, but it's okay. Much of them is quite strong. And also the pilot Iroshizulu Yama-guri, it looked like it was going to have more shading than it really has, but I know that I'm putting some big pools of ink onto the paper, so these will not reflect the real behavior of the ink in the pen. That's why then I do the reviews to show how they perform, but this is a good way, in my opinion, to see how the inks perform. Now, just to let you see closer, this is the Jacques Herbin Orange Soleil, Herbin Vert Pré, Graf on Faber-Castell Violet Blue. This change in languages is not that easy. Rohrer and Klingner Sepia, and Diamine Monboddos Hat. Then the pilot Iroshizulu Yama-guri. Next to it the Lamy Bronze. Then the Pelikan, Edelstein Aventurine, the Herbin Vert Sauvage, and Robert Oster Deep Sea. So, these are the inks that I received from Appelboom. They are all swatched. Now, some more things before the reviews are done, but I think this was just for you to see how I do it. And if you think this kind of video is interesting, I can do it more in the future when I have new inks to test. But I was not thinking about it. But if you really like it, I can do it. It's no trouble. It's almost the same doing it with the camera or without the camera. I just speaking over it or not if I don't do it on camera. So this is all for today. Please tell me if you liked or you don't like this kind of video, if I should keep doing this video, this swatch video, or if it was a one-time experiment. And also tell me what is your favorite color from all of those. I'm very inclined to say it is this one, the Herbin Vert Pré. It's beautiful. Okay, this is all for today. See you next video. Bye.